What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors sits down for a simple daytime chat show, only to be met with the most disrespectful ambush ever broadcast on live television? In just 37 seconds, one poisonous remark would expose the true nature of a daytime TV host and trigger one of the most shocking walkouts in modern broadcasting. Sir Ian McKellen, the legendary performer who brought Gandalf and Magneto to life, had graciously agreed to appear on Loose Women to promote his latest theatrical production. What should have been a warm celebration of his six-decade career instead morphed into something darker when host Denise Welch hijacked the moment to push her own agenda. The trouble began almost immediately. Ian eased into his chair, adjusting his elegant navy blazer and greeting the studio audience with his trademark, gentle smile. Denise didn't even look up. On either side of her, Ruth Langsford, Linda Robson, and Colleen Nolan exchanged uneasy glances. Something felt off. "Well then," Denise began, her tone strangely cold for daytime TV. "I'm McKellen, everyone. I suppose we should talk about your latest play. Though I do wonder, aren't audiences getting tired of seeing the same old faces on stage year after year?" Ian's brow lifted, but his posture remained dignified. "Well, Denise," he replied evenly, "I believe audiences value authenticity and experience. Theater is about human connection, regardless of age." Ruth jumped in, clearly trying to reset the tone. "Ian, we're absolutely thrilled to have you here. Your work has inspired so many." "Thank you, Ruth," Ian smiled. But Denise wasn't finished. She leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Let's be honest, Ian. Isn't it time actors of your generation step aside and make room for younger talent? How many times can people watch the same person play versions of the same character?" The studio went silent. Linda stared. Colleen froze. Even a camera operator seemed to hesitate. Ian's smile faded, though his voice stayed calm. "Are you implying that experience and craft are worthless once an artist reaches a certain age? The arts have always celebrated wisdom earned over a lifetime." "Oh, please," Denise scoffed, waving him off. "Spare us the poetic actor spiel. You're clinging to relevance. When was the last time you did anything that wasn't trading on your past?" Ruth went pale. "Denise, maybe we should focus on—" "No, Ruth," Ian said quietly, steel beneath the softness now. "Let her continue. I'm curious. Should Judi Dench have retired? Should Paul McCartney stop making music? That's different, and you know it." Denise snapped. "They're still relevant. You're just repeating yourself. How many times can you play the wise old man with a stick?" The audience gasped. A few shook their heads. Others looked genuinely uncomfortable. Colleen finally stepped in. "Denise, that's enough. Let's move on." "Why?" Denise shot back. "Because St. Ian can't handle real questions. This is what's wrong with celebrity culture. Everyone's too afraid to tell the truth." For the first time, anger flickered across Ian's face. "Truth," he said softly. "This isn't truth. This is thinly veiled ageism dressed up as journalism." "Oh, here we go," Denise sneered. "Play the victim. Maybe if you'd evolved instead of coasting on nostalgia, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Linda shrank into her seat. Ruth tried again. "And, please, tell us about working with the younger cast in—" But Ian had reached his limit. "I came here for a civilized discussion about theater," he said, voice firm. "Instead, I'm being subjected to a personal attack disguised as an interview." "Personal attack?" Denise barked. "I'm asking what everyone else is too polite to ask. You should be thanking me for being honest." By now, the tension was suffocating. Crew members whispered, producers hovered. No one seemed sure whether to step in or keep rolling as this slow, motion collision played out for the world to see. The director's voice crackled faintly through someone's earpiece. Though the words were impossible to make out, Ruth Langsford tried once more to steady the sinking ship. "I think we all need to take a moment and step back." "No, Ruth." Ian cut in, his voice firm and resonant, carrying the authority of a man who had commanded stages for half a century. this conversation matters. Because what Denise is displaying is not only a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be an artist, but frankly, of what it means to be a decent human being. Denise's face flushed crimson. "Don't you dare lecture me about decency," she snapped. "You're the one who can't handle a bit of straight talk. Maybe that's the problem with your generation. Everyone wants life wrapped in cotton wool." "Straight talk," Ian repeated, eyebrows rising, not in amusement this time but in disbelief. Is that what we're calling rudeness now? "Denise, I've worked in this industry longer than you've been alive, and I have never encountered such unprofessional behavior from someone who calls herself a journalist." A ripple of murmurs spread through the studio audience. The crowd was no longer neutral. They were clearly siding with Ain. A few even hissed under their breath at Denise's hostility. "Maybe we should cut to a commercial," Colleen Nolan urged. "Absolutely not," Denise snapped. "Ain wants this conversation? Let's have it. Tell me, Sir Ian, when did you become so precious that you can't handle a few hard questions?" Ian rose slowly from his chair. The movement was unhurried, controlled, yet commanding enough that the entire studio froze. His presence, even in silence, was overwhelming. "Hard questions," he echoed, his tone quiet, but unshakably clear. "Denise, I've answered difficult questions from some of the world's greatest interviewers. I've spoken openly about my sexuality, my politics, my failures, my craft. I don't fear inquiry. But what you're doing here is not inquiry. It's something far less dignified." The silence that followed was suffocating. The audience held their breath. Even the crew stopped moving. "Less dignified," Denise exploded, her voice rising into a shrill pitch. "How dare you talk down to me like I'm some amateur? I've been doing this job for years! And it shows," Ian replied softly. The words landed with surgical precision. Linda Robson gasped. Ruth looked toward the wings, silently pleading for someone, anyone, to call a break. The crowd no longer bothered to hide their disgust with Denise. "What's that supposed to mean?" Denise barked, pushing herself up from her seat, her rage now fully unmasked. Ian remained still, his breathing calm and measured, an actor's discipline on display. "It means that experience is supposed to teach us not only how to ask questions, but how to treat our guests with basic respect, something you seem to have forgotten in your enthusiasm for controversy." "Controversy?" Denise scoffed, voice cracking with emotion. "You think this is about controversy. This is about accountability. About calling out people who think they're above criticism just because they have a title in front of their name." Colleen rose too, stepping between them like a referee. "All right, that's enough. We can discuss this like adults." "Adults?" Denise whirled on her. "Don't you start, Colleen. I'm sick of everyone tiptoeing around celebrities like they're made of glass. If Ian McKellen can't handle scrutiny, maybe he shouldn't do interviews." Ian let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Scrutiny? I've faced scrutiny from critics far more accomplished than you, Denise. And they managed to do it without abandoning their professionalism. That struck a nerve." "Oh, accomplished, is it?" Denise snarled. "You think you're better than me. You sit in your ivory tower collecting awards for playing dress, up while real journalists like me ask the hard questions." "Real journalist?" Ruth blurted, unable to hold back anymore. "Denise, this isn't journalism. It's cruel." "Stay out of this, Ruth," Denise snapped, venom dripping from every syllable. "You're all so busy protecting your precious guest that you can't see what's really happening." Ain moved one hand to the back of his chair. Not sitting, not leaving, a single poised gesture that somehow conveyed both restraint and readiness. "What I see," he said, voice cool and precise, "is a host more interested in attacking her guest than interviewing him. What I see is someone who has confused cruelty with courage, and aggression with journalism." Each word landed like a gavel, and for the first time, Denise Welch had no immediate comeback. The studio audience broke into scattered applause, a clear and public verdict on where their sympathies lay. "Don't you dare," Denise hissed, jabbing a finger toward Ian. "Don't you dare turn this around on me. You're the one who can't handle honest questions. You're the one being defensive and precious." "Honest questions," Ian repeated, voice steady as marble, steel threaded beneath the silk. "Very well, Denise. Here's an honest question for you. Do you genuinely believe that what you've done here today represents the best of British television journalism? Do you believe your colleagues are proud of what they've just witnessed?" Linda Robson looked stricken, on the verge of tears. "Ian, please," she murmured. "Don't judge all of us by—" "Oh, I'm not judging you, Linda," Ian replied, his voice softening as he addressed the shaken panelist. "Your discomfort speaks kindly of you, as it does of Ruth and Colleen. But Denise," he turned back to his antagonist, "Denise has chosen a very different path. This path." Denise shot back, her voice shrill and cracking. "You mean the path of asking real questions instead of tossing out fluffy little compliments. God forbid someone challenge the great Sir Ian McKellen." "Challenge me?" Ian's eyebrows lifted in genuine surprise. "Denise, you haven't challenged me. You've simply been rude. There is a difference between intellectual challenge and personal attack. One is the mark of a skilled interviewer. The other is the last refuge of someone who has run out of intelligent things to say." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the crew had frozen, spellbound by the unfolding disaster. Denise opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again, like a drowning swimmer grasping for air. When she finally found her voice, it trembled. "You're twisting everything I say. That's what people like you do, isn't it? You hide behind your fancy words and posh accent to make everyone else look stupid." Ian slowly shook his head, the gesture heavy with disappointment. "Denise, I'm not trying to make you look anything at all. I'm simply responding to the tone you chose to set. If you feel that reflects poorly on you, perhaps that should tell you something. There is nothing wrong with how I conduct my interviews." Denise snapped back. Though the conviction was gone, "I ask the questions other people are afraid to ask." Ruth leaned forward, gentle but unyielding. "But Denise, there's a way to ask difficult questions without being hostile. Ian's done hundreds of interviews. I've never seen him react like this to tough questions." "That's because nobody asks him tough questions!" Denise exploded. "Everyone just fawns over him because he's Sir Ian McKellen. Well, I'm not impressed by titles or dusty old achievements. I judge people by what they're doing now." "And what am I doing now that warrants this hostility?" Ian asked quietly. "I came here to talk about a play, to share my passion for theater with your viewers. Instead, I'm defending my right to continue doing the work I love, the work I've devoted my life to." "This has gone far enough," Colleen insisted. "One need to stop." "No," Ian replied, still calm, almost eerily so. "I want to hear her answer. I want to understand what I've done to deserve this treatment." Denise's face was burning now, her breathing shallow and quick. "You want to know what you've done?" she spat. "You've coasted for decades on the same tired performances. You play the same character over and over, and everyone pretends it's brilliant because they're too afraid to tell the truth." The audience gasped. A loud, unanimous shock. Several members shouted in protest. Ian did not flinch. "The same character?" he asked, a note of genuine curiosity in his voice. "Are you suggesting that Gandalf, Magneto, Richard Athru, and King Lear are the same role? Because if that's your position, Denise, suggests a fundamental misunderstanding of my work and of acting itself." Denise faltered. "That's not. I mean, what did you mean, Denise?" Ian pressed, calm but relentless. "Because so far, you've made a series of statements you can't support with facts. So, I'll ask you again, is your issue truly with my work? Or is your hostility coming from somewhere else entirely? The question hung in the air like a blade. Denise's colleagues exchanged mortified glances, wishing they could vanish. The silence stretched long and raw as Denise's face cycled through shades of red. She knew she was cornered, and she knew Ian had dismantled her, piece by piece, without ever raising his voice. "My issue," she finally managed, quieter now but still seething, "is with actors who think they're untouchable, who walk onto shows like this expecting everyone to worship at their feet." Ian tilted his head, studying her, not angry now but analytical, even surgical. "Denise," he asked gently, "have you actually watched any of my recent work? Or are you basing your criticisms on assumptions?" The question wasn't barbed. It wasn't cruel. It was spoken with such calm, genuine curiosity that it left Denise with nowhere to stand. The softness of it made her position collapse even faster. Ruth Langsford bit her lip, finally seeing what Ian had seen minutes earlier. Denise wasn't just losing control. She was about to be exposed as completely unprepared. "I don't need to watch every single thing you've done to know." Denise began, but the sentence withered in her mouth. Even she could hear how hollow it sounded. "To know what exactly?" Ian asked, his voice gentle, patient, devastating. "Because forming opinions about a body of work you haven't actually examined. That is rather the opposite of journalism. Isn't it?" Linda Robson covered her face, no longer able to watch the slow motion wreck unfolding beside her. The audience fell into a deep, anticipatory silence. They could feel it. The moment before a dam breaks. Denise opened her mouth but only managed a helpless, soundless gasp. "I've seen enough," she finally whispered. "Have you?" Ian replied, calm as ever. "Because your earlier comment about me playing the same character suggests otherwise." "Have you seen my King Lear from last year? My work in The Prisoner? Any of my recent radio dramas? Or," he tilted his head, "polite but merciless? Are you perhaps thinking of someone else entirely?" His composure was more destructive than shouting ever could be. Each question landed like a quiet hammer, revealing another gap, another corner she had never done the work to fill. Colleen Nolan jumped in, desperate for escape. "Maybe we should move on. Ian, what keeps bringing you back to the stage after all these years in film?" But Ian didn't look away. "I'm still waiting for an answer," he said. "If we're going to discuss my career on national television, I'd like to know which specific performances Denise finds so repetitive." "This is ridiculous," Denise snapped, her voice cracking. "I shouldn't have to justify my opinions to you." "Of course you shouldn't," Ian agreed smoothly. "But when you use those opinions as weapons, publicly, on national television, I think it's reasonable to expect that they come from knowledge, not prejudice." The word hit like a dropped bomb. Ruth's eyes widened. The audience froze. Denise stiffened. "Prejudice," she repeated, strangled and trembling. "How dare you? I treat everyone exactly the same." "Do you?" Ian asked quietly. "Because I must wonder, would you speak to a female actor of my age this way? Or is there something about older male actors that brings out this particular brand of hostility from you?" It was a surgical strike, precise, undeniable, and impossible to deflect. Her colleagues stared at her now, finally seeing what Ian had seen from the start. "That's not fair," Denise whispered. But the fight was gone. "Isn't it?" Ian asked, voice still soft, almost compassionate. "Because from where I'm sitting, it appears you came into this interview with a predetermined agenda, one that has nothing to do with my work, or my projects, or even journalism. And I'm left wondering what that agenda truly is." Linda slowly lowered her hands from her face. The room was silent, reverent, even. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a master class in poise under fire. "I don't have an agenda," Denise muttered. But she didn't sound convinced, not even to herself. "Then help me understand," Ian said, leaning in just slightly, that unshakable dignity wrapping around every syllable. Help me understand why you invited me here, only to belittle my age, my relevance, and my continued work. Help me understand why you felt entitled to be cruel about art you admit you haven't bothered to watch." The words echoed in the stunned stillness of the studio. Denise looked desperately to her colleagues for rescue, and found none. Ruth, voice trembling with controlled indignation, finally said, "Denise, I think Ian deserves an apology." "An apology," Denise choked. "For what?" "For asking tough questions. For being unnecessarily cruel," Ruth replied, her diplomacy gone at last. "For ambushing a guest who came here in good faith." Ian lifted a hand gently, stopping her. "It's all right, Ruth. I don't need an apology," Ian said softly. "What I do need is clarity. I want to know whether this is truly how Loose Women treats its guests. Because if it is, then your viewers deserve to be aware of that." The implication hit harder than any raised voice ever could. Colleen Nolan went pale, looking moments from being sick, while Linda Robson seemed on the verge of tears. "This isn't how we normally do things," Linda rushed out. "Ian, please don't judge the show by today." "I'm not judging the show," Ian assured her, kind and measured. "I'm judging the behavior I've witnessed today, and I must say I find it deeply revealing." Denise made one last frantic grab for control. "Oh, come off it. You're being oversensitive. This is just how television works now. People want real conversations, not scripted pleasantries." Ian rose from his chair, tall and resolute, the decision already written in his posture. "Real conversations," he repeated. "Denise, what's happened here today is not a conversation. It has been a one-sided attack, built on ignorance, and what can only be interpreted as personal resentment. A real conversation requires mutual respect and a basic understanding of the subject. Neither has been present here today." "You can't just leave," Denise blurted, panic finally breaking through. Only now did she grasp what was about to happen, and what it would cost. "Actually," Ian replied, adjusting his jacket with unshakable grace, "I can." He let the words settle, then continued, "And I will. Because I came here to discuss my passion for theater, to share that joy with your audience. Instead, I've been subjected to what can only be described as professional misconduct, dressed up as journalism." The studio fell so silent that the only sound was the low mechanical hum of cameras documenting every devastating second of Denise's unraveling. Ian turned to the other panelists with genuine warmth. "Ruth, Linda, Colleen, thank you for your attempts to steer this back toward professionalism. Your efforts speak well of your character and of your commitment to actual journalism." Then he turned back to Denise, not angry, not triumphant, but solemn. "And Denise, I truly hope you will reflect on what happened here today. Because the way you treat others, especially when you hold the power of a platform, reveals far more about you than it ever could about them." With that, Sir Ian McKellen walked off the set, head high, dignity intact, leaving behind a studio full of stunned faces and one host whose career would never fully recover from 37 seconds of pure, unfiltered toxicity that exposed her for exactly who she was. The cameras kept rolling as Denise sat frozen, realizing, too late, that she had destroyed her own reputation in pursuit of a controversy that existed only in her own imagination. Her colleagues couldn't bring themselves to look at her, and the studio audience remained in absolute, breathless silence, having witnessed one of the most graceful exits in television history.